The land burned beneath the sun, and shadows stretched long across the valley. Herds of plant-eaters moved in restless silence, their tails dragging through the dust. Every step carried unease, as if the earth itself warned of a coming storm. In the distance a figure emerged, broad-headed and relentless. Abelisaurus walked with steady power, its eyes locked upon the herd. It did not rush for fear already weak in its prey. The forest fell silent, the river held its breath. In that moment the land remembered its ruler, and the hunt was only a heartbeat away. The land of South America during the late Cretaceous was alive with sound and struggle. Forests of conifers and tall ferns stretched far across the valleys. Rivers carved shining paths to the lowlands, feeding marshes where insects swarmed in golden clouds. The air was heavy with heat, and each breath tasted of dust. Herds of plant-eaters moved carefully between the trees. Their heads lowered to strip leaves from branches, yet their eyes lifted often with nervous awareness. The balance of this world was fragile, and every creature knew the weight of survival. Abelisaurus moved within this world as a living shadow of power. Its skull was deep and heavy, lined with teeth that shone like broken blades. Its neck carried the head forward with speed and precision. Its forelimbs were small, but its legs were long and built for bursts of strength. Its back bore scars of old battles, and its hide carried the dust of countless hunts. To see Abelisaurus was to witness dominance shaped by time. To hear its steps was to feel the earth answer to a predator that had ruled the land for ages. The morning sun shimmered across the valley as Abelisaurus descended from a ridge. Its eyes scanned the landscape with calm focus. Below the ridge a herd of Saltosaurus fed in clusters, their tails swaying like living walls of defense. The herd was strong and organized. Adults circled the young, while a few stood watch with heads raised. Abelisaurus studied them not with haste, but with patience. It knew the cost of failure. One wrong strike could mean broken bones or wasted strength. Hunger drove it forward, but instinct shaped its pace. Around the herd smaller creatures scattered. Ornithopods grazed near the riverbank, snorting nervously whenever shadows shifted in the trees. Flocks of birds lifted into the air at the faintest sound. Even the insects seemed to scatter at the scent of Abelisaurus. The presence of the predator was a force in itself. The forest grew quiet whenever it walked through. Silence followed in its wake, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the steady rhythm of its steps. The river carried a cool shimmer, yet also danger. Water gave life to the herds, but it also revealed them. Banks were open spaces where prey became exposed. Abelisaurus knew this. It did not always strike from the forest. Sometimes patience at the river edge brought opportunity. When herds lowered their guard to drink, their formation weakened. When their heads dipped, their awareness dulled. A predator that understood timing could turn patience into victory. Abelisaurus had mastered that timing. The valley itself was no gentle place. Storms rose, suddenly sweeping rain and wind across the land. Heat waves turned soil into cracked stone and rivers into shallow trickles. Prey grew restless under these changes, shifting migration routes to chase water and food. Predators followed, yet also battled for dominance when scarcity came. Abelisaurus had fought rivals before. Its scars spoke of tooth and claw. Each scar was both memory and lesson. To rule the land was not to be free of challenge, but to endure beyond it. That morning the forest carried a strange tension. Calls of smaller hunters echoed at a distance, sharper and more restless than usual. Dromaeosaurs hunted in packs, moving swiftly through the undergrowth. Their cries rose and faded into silence, as if they too sensed the weight of something greater. Abelisaurus paused to listen. Its eyes narrowed and its nostrils flared. There was more than prey in the valley today. There was challenge. Far beyond the ridge, another roar rolled through the forest. It was deep and drawn like thunder chasing across the trees. The sound carried warning and promise. It was the voice of another predator. Abelisaurus still for a moment, its body tense. The call was not near enough for immediate threat, yet it was close enough to be known. Another of its kind walked these lands. The herd of Saltosaurus stirred nervously at the sound. Some shifted position, pressing closer together. Adults swung their tails across the ground with heavy force. Dust rose in clouds around them. Young bleated within the circle of their guardians. Fear rippled through the herd, not only from the unseen rival, but from the predator already watching. They stood between two threats, one distant, one near. Abelisaurus lowered its head, slightly, the muscles along its neck tightening. Its eyes did not leave the herd, but the roar lingered in its mind. Rival presence meant future conflict. Dominance was never permanent. The land belonged to those who could hold it. For now, hunger pressed strongest, yet instinct kept the predator cautious. The Saltosaurus herd was not weak. A single swing from their tails could break bone. A reckless strike could end in death. Instead, Abelisaurus stepped back into the cover of the trees. Shadows wrapped around its body, and the forest seemed to swallow its form. The herd relaxed only slightly, though their watch never faltered. They had survived many hunts before, and would again. But the predator's patience did not fade. It would wait for night. Darkness was its ally's silence, its shield. When the moon rose and the herd's eyes grew heavy, Abelisaurus would strike. The day stretched long across the valley. Heat shimmered from stone, and dust rose with every movement. Abelisaurus lay low in the shade of ferns, watching smaller creatures cross the forest floor. Ornithopods darted past in bursts of nervous speed. Dromaeosaurs circled through the undergrowth, their sharp calls slicing through the air. None dared approach the giant. Even in rest, Abelisaurus carried presence like a weight upon the land. As evening approached, the herd moved again. Saltosaurus lifted their heads toward the river, their bodies heavy with thirst. Abelisaurus followed at distance, weaving between shadows. Each step was careful, each movement deliberate. The forest grew dim as the sun sank low, painting the sky in red and gold. In that fading light, the predator's silhouette merged with the shadows of trees. To the herd, it was unseen, yet its gaze never left them. The river came into view. Its waters reflected the first stars of the night. The herd moved close to their formation, loose with exhaustion. Adults lowered their heads, first drinking deeply. Young pushed between them, their cries soft yet urgent. For a moment, the herd forgot the shadow in the forest. For a moment, they were vulnerable. Abelisaurus did not move yet. It crouched low, its body silent, its eyes fixed upon the edge of the herd. Patience pulsed through its veins stronger than hunger. It knew the perfect strike came not in haste, but in stillness. The world slowed around it. Insects hummed, frogs croaked from the shallows, and the sound of the herd filled the night. Every sense sharpened as Abelisaurus waited. Far beyond the forest, the roar came again. Louder, closer. The rival was moving. Abelisaurus felt the sound through its bones. A storm was coming, not of rain, but of blood. The valley would not belong to two rulers. Night fell upon the valley, and shadows claimed the land. Stars scattered across the sky, while the river reflected silver light. The herd of Saltosaurus lingered at the bank, drinking slowly, their tails swaying with caution. Abelisaurus waited in silence, hidden within the forest edge. Its body pressed low, its eyes glowing faint in the starlight. Hunger pulsed through its chest, but instinct kept its muscles still. The perfect moment had not yet come. The herd shifted closer to the water. Young moved within the circle of adults, their calls soft and uncertain. A few of the older ones began to relax, their heads dipping low, their eyes half closed. Abelisaurus shifted one step forward, the ground silent beneath its padded feet. Another step followed, then another. The distance between predator and prey closed. Then a sudden crack of a branch echoed. The herd jolted. Tails swung wide, dust filled the air, and the chance vanished. Abelisaurus froze, but the herd was already in motion. They pushed away from the river, forming a tight line, their massive bodies pressing together. The predator growled low, deep frustration, vibrating within its chest. The moment was gone. Abelisaurus retreated into the shadows. The herd would not be taken that night. Hunger gnawed stronger, but patience returned to its stride. Survival was not found in recklessness, but in persistence. It moved deeper into the forest, seeking smaller prey. There found a group of ornithopods grazing beneath the ferns. They were small, quick, and nervous. Abelisaurus burst from the trees with speed. The ground shook as it lunged forward, jaws wide. Panic scattered the group, yet one was too slow. Teeth sank into flesh, and the predator shook its head, violently breaking bone and silencing the cries. It fed, quickly tearing strips of meat. It was not the feast it desired, yet it was enough to silence hunger for the night. Morning rose warm and heavy. The valley shimmered under the heat of the sun. Abelisaurus moved along the river, its body glistening with water as it waded through the shallows. Its eyes scanned the ground for tracks. Marks pressed deep into mud revealed the presence of another predator. The prints were large, broad, and heavy. Abelisaurus lowered its head, sniffing the edges of the tracks. The scent was fresh. The rival had walked this path not long ago. Muscles tightened along its back, and a low growl rumbled through its chest. The rival was not distant anymore. For days, tension grew within the valley. The roar of the rival echoed closer each night. Sometimes it came from the ridge, sometimes from the river. The herds grew restless, moving often and never settling in one place for long. Abelisaurus watched them carefully, yet hunts grew harder. Prey shifted paths, avoiding open ground where predators could strike. Hunger returned sharp and relentless. One storm rolled across the valley without warning. Winds tore through the trees and rain hammered the ground. The river swelled, carrying branches and debris in its rushing current. Abelisaurus pushed through the storm, searching for shelter. Lightning split the sky in blinding flashes, while thunder shook the ground. Prey scattered in every direction. The predator's body ached with cold, but endured, curling beneath a rocky overhang until the storm passed. By morning the valley lay scarred. Trees lay broken across the ground, and the river's edge was torn open by the flood. The world had changed overnight. Scarcity followed. The storm had driven many herds away. Celtosaurus moved toward the highlands, seeking dry ground. Ornithopods scattered to safer feeding patches. Abelisaurus stalked the forest with growing urgency. Hunger cut deeper than ever. Each failed hunt drained its strength, and the wounds of old battles burned again with every step. Still it persisted. It would not yield. Then opportunity arrived. In the clearing of a broken forest, Abelisaurus found Sauropelta. The armor herbivore moved slow, its back lined with heavy plates and spikes. Its head lowered as it stripped ferns from the ground. It was dangerous prey, but it was alone. Abelisaurus circled carefully, its steps measured. It lunged forward, biting deep into the creature's flank. Sauropelta bellowed, thrashing violently. Spikes tore across the predator's shoulder, opening a deep wound. Pain seared, yet Abelisaurus did not release. It pulled hard teeth, cutting through flesh, until the armored beast collapsed beneath its weight. Breath-ragged Abelisaurus stood over the fallen prey, victorious, but wounded. It fed long into the night, tearing great chunks of flesh. Blood coated its jaws and chest, yet hunger dulled with every bite. The valley echoed with the sound of tearing meat and the calls of scavengers circling above. Dromaeosaurs gathered in the shadows, waiting for their chance. Abelisaurus roared, shaking the trees, warning them to stay back. None dared move closer until the predator laid down to rest. The days that followed brought both strength and weakness. The kill had restored its energy, yet the wound on its shoulder ached. It licked the gash often, keeping flies away, yet blood still seeped when it moved. The pain slowed its pace and forced it to hunt with more care. Still it remained ruler of its valley. The land recognized its presence, and prey trembled when its shadow fell across the grass. But the rival was not silent. Its roars carried stronger across the nights, each one closer than the last. Abelisaurus stood on the ridge, listening, its eyes narrowing in the dark. The call was deep, filled with challenge. The valley was not big enough for two rulers. The rival had entered its territory, and soon the clash would come. The herd sensed it as well. Celtosaurus moved further than before, gathering in massive groups for protection. Ornithopods grazed only under heavy cover. Even the river felt empty, as if silence itself waited for the storm. The valley held its breath. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Abelisaurus followed the scent of prey near the water. Its wound burned, yet hunger pressed harder. The forest opened, and the herd of Celtosaurus stood ahead. Their bodies blocked the path, their tails swaying like armored walls. Abelisaurus crouched low, preparing to strike. Then the ground shook. Another roar thundered across the valley, closer than ever before. The herd erupted into panic, fleeing in a cloud of dust. Abelisaurus froze, its eyes turning toward the sound. Through the trees the rival emerged. Larger, broader, its scars deep and fresh. Its eyes burned with the fire challenge. Abelisaurus stood tall, its body tense. The two predators locked gazes across the clearing. The forest fell silent. No bird called, no insect sang. The valley itself seemed to wait. The rival roared again, louder, shaking the very air. Abelisaurus answered with a roar of its own, the sound rolling through the trees. The echoes collided, filling the valley with thunder. This was no longer the quiet hunt of the shadows. This was the rising storm of dominance. The rival stepped forward slowly, its muscles rippling with power. Abelisaurus matched each step, refusing to yield. The distance between them shrank. The air thickened with tension. Prey scattered far from the valley edges. Scavengers vanished into shadows. Even the river seemed to still. The time for patience was gone. The time for the final clash approached. The clearing lay silent beneath the blood-red sky of evening. Dust drifted in slow spirals as two giants faced one another. Abelisaurus stood tall, its wounded shoulder aching, yet its gaze steady and unbroken. Across the broken ground, a rival advanced, broader and heavier, its hide scarred from many battles. The valley itself seemed to tremble beneath their presence. The first roar came like thunder rolling across the forest. It was the rival's challenge, a sound filled with power and fury. Birds lifted from the trees in a wave of panic, and smaller creatures scattered into the underbrush. Abelisaurus did not retreat. Its chest swelled, and it answered with a roar of its own, a sound that split the air like a tearing storm. The echoes collided, filling the land with chaos. The rival charged, first its legs pounding the earth with heavy strikes. Dust rose behind it as it lunged forward, jaws wide. Abelisaurus braced, lowering its head before meeting the attack with a violent crash. Teeth snapped, jaws clamped, and the sound of bone striking bone rang across the valley. The rival pushed hard, forcing Abelisaurus backward. Claws raked across scales, tearing lines into its flank. Abelisaurus growled with pain, yet refused to fall. It twisted its neck, biting deep into the rival's side. Flesh tore, blood sprayed, and the roar of agony filled the air. The two predators circled each other, their breasts ragged, their bodies tense. Each step shook the ground as if the valley itself bore the weight of their struggle. The rival lunged again, striking with its massive head, slamming Abelisaurus to the side. The world spun as dust and blood filled the air. Abelisaurus rolled, but regained its stance quickly, its eyes locked upon its enemy. Hunger, pain, and rage burned together, forming an unstoppable force. They collided, once more, their jaws clamping onto each other's necks. The struggle became a storm of thrashing bodies and tearing flesh. Blood soaked the ground, staining the broken grass. Roars turned into growls and into guttural snarls. Abelisaurus dug its claws into the rival's shoulder, ripping muscle. The rival struck back with a powerful shove, sending Abelisaurus stumbling. For a moment, it seemed the larger predator had the advantage. Yet Abelisaurus endured. Its body carried the scars of storms and hunger, its spirit shaped by battles of survival. It lowered itself, then lunged with sudden speed, surprising the rival. Its jaws locked around the throat of its enemy, crushing with relentless force. The rival thrashed violently, shaking trees as it fought to break free. Claws raked across Abelisaurus, tearing deep into its side. Pain flared, but the predator held tight. The struggle lasted endless moments. Dust clouded the clearing, thunder echoed, as if the sky itself shared in the chaos. The rival grew weaker, its thrashing slowed. Abelisaurus pressed harder, its teeth sinking deeper, until the roar of the rival broke into silence. With one final wrenching twist, Abelisaurus pulled its enemy down to the earth. The rival collapsed, shaking the ground with its fall. Silence spread slowly through the valley. The only sound was Abelisaurus breathing ragged and heavy. Its body trembled, blood dripping from deep wounds. It stood over the fallen rival, its chest rising and falling with exhaustion. Victory had come, but at a cost carved into its flesh. The rival lay motionless, its eyes dull, its reign ended forever. Abelisaurus roared one final time. The sound carried across the valley's shaking trees and echoing through the distant hills. It was not just a call of victory, but the declaration of dominance. The valley belonged to it alone. Prey far away froze at the sound, their bodies quivering with instinct. Scavengers hidden in shadows waited silent, knowing they could not yet approach. The predator limped to the ridge, its wounds burning with each step. Blood dripped into the dust, marking a trail of battle. The sky darkened as stars began to appear above. Abelisaurus raised its head high, its body silhouetted against the horizon. Though battered, it stood tall, its spirit unbroken. The valley had tested its strength, and it had endured. The carcass of the rival lay as a reminder of the struggle. Soon scavengers would feast tearing flesh and bone until nothing remained. Yet in that moment the land was quiet in respect. The clash of titans had ended and balance was restored. Abelisaurus lowered its head and began to feed. The flesh of its enemy became the reward for victory, the nourishment to heal wounds and renew strength. Each bite carried not only survival, but a mark of triumph. Blood stained its jaws and chest, yet it ate with patience, not haste. The fight had drained its energy, but not its will. Hours passed. The moon rose high, bathing the valley in silver light. The clearing glistened with the remains of battle blood, shimmering like dark rivers across the soil. Abelisaurus finally stepped back, its hunger satisfied. It turned its gaze to the dark forest beyond. There lay its future, its hunts, its survival. The rival was gone, the path ahead was clear. The predator walked away slowly, its body heavy, but its mind sharp. Each step reminded of the wounds, still bleeding, yet strength pulsed within each stride. The valley lay open wide and waiting. Its roar still echoed in the hearts of every creature that lived within. Abelisaurus was not just a hunter, it was the sovereign of the land. The valley lay quiet after the storm of battle. Trees still leaned where the giants had struck them, and the earth carried deep scars pressed by their weight. The carcass of the rival Abelisaurus lay broken upon the ground, its body now a feast for the scavengers of the night. Flies buzzed in swarms, while small predators crept close, their eyes glinting in the moonlight. Dromaeosaurs shrieked from the edge of the forest, circling with caution. None dared approach, while Abelisaurus stood near guarding its prize. The victor did not roar now. Its body ached from countless wounds. Deep gashes crossed its side, and its shoulder throbbed with pain. Yet it remained upright, a living wall of strength. It had endured, and the valley belonged to it. Still the price of victory weighed heavy. Its breath came slow and uneven, its muscles trembling with exhaustion. The predator lowered itself to the ground, resting beside the fallen rival. For hours the night passed in stillness. The stars drifted above, while the moon painted the battlefield in pale light. Abelisaurus licked its wounds, carefully cleaning away blood. The taste of iron filled its mouth, yet instinct guided it. Each stroke of its tongue slowed the bleeding and cooled the fire of pain. Its body remembered survival for countless generations before it had followed the same ritual. By morning the scavengers grew bolder. A flock of pterosaurs descended, their wings cutting through the dawn sky. They landed upon the carcass, tearing strips of flesh. Small carnivores darted between the shadows, snapping at each other for scraps. Abelisaurus watched without anger. Its hunger had already been filled the night before, and the kill was too large to guard forever. The rival's death gave life to the valley, just as every fallen beast before. Such was the cycle that ruled all. The days that followed tested the predator. Each step carried pain, yet it did not surrender to weakness. It moved with slower grace, patrolling the ridges and riverbanks of its territory. The scent of the rival lingered still in the soil, yet no roar challenged again. Silence carried a different weight now. The valley recognized one master. Storm clouds rolled again across the sky, though lighter than the last great tempest. Rain fell steady, soaking the earth and filling the river with fresh water. Abelisaurus drank deeply the cool liquid, soothing its parched throat. Drops washed across its wounds, leaving trails of red that vanished into the river. With every day of rest, its strength returned. The ache in its shoulder dulled, the gash upon its side closed. Its body healed scar by scar, building a record of survival upon its hide. Prey returned slowly to the valley. The herds of Celtosaurus moved down from the highlands, their heavy bodies shaking the ground as they walked. Ornithopods crept from the cover of trees to feed upon the new shoots that grew after the rain. Even the smaller creatures returned, filling the air with sound once more. Life always returned when balance was restored. Abelisaurus watched from a distance, its gaze calm and patient. The land offered food again, and the hunt would continue. One evening, as the sun bled into the horizon, Abelisaurus rose from the forest edge. Its eyes locked upon a group of young ornithopods grazing near the water. Hunger stirred, but not with the desperate edge of before. It moved with measured steps, its body low, its tail balancing each stride. The hunt unfolded with precision. A sudden burst of speed, a crushing bite, and the chase ended. The predator fed, slowly savoring the taste of fresh prey. Strength returned with every tear of flesh. Night fell, and the valley sang with sound. Frogs croaked by the river, insects hummed in the grass, and distant calls echoed through the trees. Abelisaurus stood upon the ridge, overlooking the land. Its chest rose with deep, steady breaths. It had fought, endured, and triumphed. The scars upon its body glistened beneath the moon, but they did not weaken it. They marked it as survivor, ruler, and legend of the valley. Balance had returned, yet the memory of battle lingered. The clearing where the rival fell remained scarred, the earth pressed deep and dark. Bones lay scattered across the ground, stripped clean by scavengers. Grass would grow again, trees would rise, yet the land would always remember. The valley itself carried the story carved into soil and silence. Abelisaurus did not linger long in that place. Survival demanded forward steps, not backward glances. It moved through the forest, its form slipping between the shadows. Each hunt, each drink, each roar carried its dominance further. Other predators avoided the valley, their sense faint and distant. The rival's fall had sent a warning none would soon forget. Seasons turned slowly. The rains gave way to dry winds, of grass faded to gold, and dust rose with every stride. Abelisaurus endured the shift, its body strong, its instinct sharp. Prey shifted with the seasons, yet the predator always adapted. The cycle never ended. Hunger returned again and again, yet so did the hunt, so did the feast, so did survival. One morning Abelisaurus awoke to the calls of distant herds. It rose slowly, stretching its massive body. The sun climbed high, painting the valley in fire. The predator stepped forward, each stride firm and unyielding. Scars marked its hide, strength marked its presence. The land had tested it and found it worthy. The valley lived under its rule, and all who moved within knew the shadow of Abelisaurus. The valley shimmered beneath the golden light of evening. Dust rose in soft trails as herds moved slowly across the plains, their massive bodies swaying with calm rhythm. Birds circled high above their wings, catching the fading sun. The river glowed like molten fire as it wound through the land. All was quiet, all was balanced. Upon the ridge Abelisaurus stood tall, its form a dark silhouette against the burning horizon. Scars covered its hide, each one a story of hunger, of storms, of battles won. Its chest rose steady, its breath deep and controlled. The wounds of the great clash had healed, leaving only lines carved into flesh, yet those lines spoke of survival, not defeat. Below the predator, the valley pulsed with life. Herds grazed without panic, though their eyes lifted off into the ridge where the shadow of their ruler lingered. Small predators prowled at the edges, careful never to cross too close. Even the scavengers who had feasted upon the rival now kept distance. The land remembered the roar that had shaken, its bones a roar that declared dominance. Abelisaurus lowered its head, drinking the scents carried upon the wind. Fresh trails marked the movement of prey near the river. Hunger stirred, but there was no rush. Time belonged to it now. The rival was gone, the valley was whole, and every heartbeat of life within it answered the shadow on the ridge. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in red and gold, Abelisaurus raised its head. A deep growl rose from its chest, swelling into a roar that split the air. The sound rolled across the plains, shook the forest, stirred the river. It was a voice of power, of memory, of legacy. Every creature froze, listening, their hearts trembling. When silence returned, the valley breathed again. The sun slid below the horizon, the stars awakened in the sky, and darkness spread across the land. Abelisaurus turned from the ridge, its massive form fading into shadows of the forest. It moved with the certainty of a ruler, whose place had been earned with blood and endurance. The valley slept under its watch, and its story lived in every scar, every roar, every heartbeat of survival. Abelisaurus was more than predator. It was the essence of dominance, eternal and unyielding.